Sylvia, this is a great question that I haven't had before, and it's fantastic because we all go through it. It's an illusion, but it's a powerful illusion that we get hooked into and we believe and we reinforce. So I'm so glad you brought this up. And the question is, surviving. Now, I'm not mocking your question. This is how a lot of people think. So this is fantastic that you've asked this and that you've worded it this way. But again, you know, it's one of those things where the answer is also in the question itself. Look at the language. Surviving social and economic crisis. Boom. Loaded question. Loaded question, but very common, the way we think, so it's perfect. Thank you. It's something we all do to some level. Some people do constantly. And to be quite frank, it's a bullshit question. to just be real, it's a bullshit question. But we do it. We all do it to an extent. And a lot of people do it a lot. But it's a bullshit question of the mind. Because listen to it. Again, I'm not mocking you. You know, welcome to the club, Sylvia. So please don't. This is amazing you've asked this. It's going to help a lot of us. So thank you. But it is. It's a bullshit question. Very typical of our minds. Surviving social and economic crisis. First of all, I'm glad you said survival because that's something I've tapped on a little bit in videos. But any chance it can come up again, great, because it so needs to really be looked at in ourselves and in our culture and in our lives because it doesn't get enough attention. That is a question we all should ask ourselves, and I asked myself that a long time ago. For me, it came up when I was, most of us, you know, we first awaken to the world, we get into the truthing stuff, and then we awaken to the truth of ourselves and we get more into spirituality. Some still keep a little bit of foot in the truther. We still want to be aware of what's going on in the world. Some of us shift completely over. That's usually most of it. First, we wake up to the world and then we wake up, you know, to the lies. It's the world of lies and contradictions. And then we wake up eventually to ourselves when we let go a lot of that anger and confusion. So that's usually the process. And so for me, when I was at that, and usually we get to a point where we think we have to pick, well, you don't actually have to pick anything. You can just move. You'll either keep a foot in both, or you'll go to the other. You know, you'll find your way. But it doesn't have to be I have to pick one. And a lot of times we get up in the mind and we get to that stage, a lot of us. And I got to that stage at one point where it felt like they were contradiction and conflicting when there is and nothing is. When you feel moved to speak as a truther, then you can do that. When you feel moved to speak from spirituality, you can do that. And if you start to resonate more in the other, then great. So it'll all happen naturally. But when we often get into that, we feel it's a conflicting choice, one or the other. And I was one of those a few years back. And when I was in that stage, that's when it brought up these kind of feelings. And the question it brought up for me was, am I here to survive? And I've known for a long time now, but really in the last few years I've really thought it through. But really I've lived that way for for quite some time. But it really sunk in the last couple of years, and then it really became an actual question. And that is, am I? And at that point, when I was struggling between truth and spirituality, that's when the question came up. Because when you're really absorbed in the over-information of all the lies and misdirections and all, and the system and society and social stuff, fear gets, because it's meant to condition you and make you afraid. And so you do feel that fear when you read all this stuff or hear about all this stuff and you see all this stuff. And so when that fear comes up, survival, fear puts you in survival mode. Which is why we often still see us react in fight or flight. And that's when we're up in the mind and we're up in fear. And so when we're in fear, that's when survival really, that instinct, animal instinct. But are we just animals, we're much more than animals. We're much more. We are animals, but we're much more. Thus the chaos and thus the beauty that we create. We're much more than that. Not better, just much more. Much, you know, there's definitely a difference in that sense between us and the other animals here. These other animals are already in it. They're, you know, we can learn so much from them because they just are. They teach us how to just be. So in many ways they're way beyond us. But in this particular expression we're very different because we think and we create these identities, and we now understand, we create our environment, and we understand so much more, although we really barely understand anything still. But we are, great shifts are happening. We're starting to realize how powerful we are and how powerful and amazing and magical this all is. And so we're much more than animals. And so, sure, ask yourself the question, do you want to be one of these people that want to survive? Think about it. For me, the answer is absolutely no. I am not here to survive. And you don't need to. When you embrace yourself and when you understand that the law of attraction is real, everything you need will come to you. It always does. Our life proves this to us. Again and again, we're always worrying our whole lives that something's not going to work out. And yeah, things sometimes don't work out exactly as we thought, but things always work out. So our life proves to us what you need will come to you. And the more you really start to live a high vibrational life of self-love, you really start to see it happen. And we really start to see us manifest incredible things that aren't coincidences at all. So that will happen. And so there's no need for survival. We live in abundance, and whatever you need will come to you. So it's an illusion to begin with. You don't need to survive to begin with. And second of all, even if you did, does it feel good just to survive? When we see people that aren't, you know, what some would label asleep, but no one's truly ever really asleep, but, you know, people that are still very stuck in the system, watching tons of TV and consuming products, and they're just, all their ideas are coming from religions or other people's concepts, or family, or society, or the government, or other people's opinions and books, whatever. When we see a lot of people that are really tapped, really still hooked very much into the environment, and don't spend a lot of energy on self-love or self-growth, and that are very unhappy. And when we see that, they're very much in survival mode, aren't they? All they're worrying about is how much money do I have, and I just need to have something, I just want this and that. And they're very much in survival mode. Even at work, I got to get this promotion, I got to competition, you know, this illusion of lack. So they're very much in lack. Is this so-called asleep state, caught in the illusion of lack, and caught in the mind, and caught in fear. And so does that seem like a great way to live? And at some point in our lives, we've all lived that way. Did you enjoy living that way? When you're so worried about bills all the time, or money, or getting enough food, or this or that, or survival, do you enjoy that? Does that feel good? I think we all know the answer is no. It doesn't feel good. So now you're just living an unhappy life of survival. So you've got everything you need, but you're not really living. So right there, survival. Ask yourself the question, do you really want to just survive? Is it really necessary anyways? And if you want to look at the big scheme of things when it comes to, like, you know, what's going to happen if big things happen in the world, or another war, or some big natural disaster, and everything turns upside down, these crises that keep... We've been dealing with crises since the beginning of... since we first started walking around on 2 feet, because we create them. So the crises will always come, and they're illusions too, and they're heavily propagated and created by the system, and even created by ourselves. Ultimately, they're created from ourselves, because we create it all here. So it all comes, these illusions come from our fear. So first of all, there aren't real crises. Huge challenges, things that appear to be crises, yes. We'll go through them, but worrying about them, we don't know when they'll come. And just worrying about them, you're just adding to manifesting them to begin with. But let's just say they were to happen. Again, it'll just come down to a choice. For me, I won't be one of those people stocking up water of something. When something happens and everybody starts worrying, I'd be honest with you, a couple decades ago, I remember back in the Fody Baloney Y2K scare, where they thought because of a thing happening with computers, everything was going to collapse. I was one of many that, stored up a little extra water. But since then, yeah, I don't do that stuff. It's okay if you want to. But for me, when it comes to those kind of things, if something major happens on this planet, I'm still just going to rely on what I know, which is self-love and knowing that what I need will come to me. And some may get up in line and say that's a delusion, but it's not a delusion if you really see how things work. Proof is in the pudding. Worrying gets you nowhere. Scrambling to get the things you need doesn't make for a happy life. And we see the people that come from nothing and create the most amazing lives for themselves. The people that write the books about it, the people, the big success stories, we look at them, self-love and a realization that they can create, that they are the masters of their own experience, and that anything they want, they can create. That's what they're tapping into. That's the truth. That's where abundance is, by realizing you're abundant to begin with in the first place. But if one of these things happened, it just seems funny, and it's propagated by all this, all these TV and movies, all these negative movies of violence and end of the world and zombies and all these things that, watch what you put in your bodies, watch what you put in your minds, because, you are what you eat in the grand sense of it all. And so, those of us that are really on the path of self-love, we less and less poison our bodies. We put less and less toxins in, and we in our general environment with people, we don't do things or be around people that don't serve us anymore, and we certainly don't watch things that don't make us feel good or that instill fear. So we don't watch a lot of news or any at all. We don't watch TV. We watch movies. We watch uplifting movies, not where people are getting cut up and raped and slaughtered, all this negative entertainment. And then we instill that fear and spread it, and we create it more. So when we see those movies, though, that bring up the question, what would you do if this stuff happened and people have weapons and they're building bunkers and they're stocking food? Really? That's what the heck kind of life? You want to be one of those movies where it's a wasteland and you're just living and it's every man for himself? I don't want to live in that world, and I won't. So, so right there, if you're worrying about the big stuff happening, and that's what you mean by survival, you have to ask yourself, is that what you want? Or would you rather just live fully up until whatever happens, until your end, when your time has come? Do you just want to live a full, happy life? Which sounds better to you? Or do you want to live a life of worrying about everyday survival, worrying about world survival, worrying about survival? So the question is, are we here to survive? Ask yourself that question. Is that why you want to be here? Is that you want to live? Does it help us when we react to life instead of accept and embrace life? Instead we react out of fight or flight, which of course is about survival and fear. So I think I've answered that pretty good. In social, well, to quote a good friend of mine, screw what society tells you. Don't worry about social. We create the social. You be the way you want to be, and you will create change. Don't worry about what's going on socially. And as for crises, well, they come and go, and they'll always come and go. So why worry about it? Why be in that frame of mind? So again, you choose. If you want to choose to be happy, then you'll choose to not buy into that stuff. You'll choose to watch, to absorb less of that stuff, and to absorb instead, spend your time in nature, spend your time listening to music, creating, writing, doing things that fulfill you, not just as hobbies, but to continually just make you your number one priority in your own happiness and your own fulfillment, and get excited about life. Every moment we are here is a gift. Every moment. Enjoy everything that you do. So I would say focus on that and the self-love. And if it keeps coming up, look at what you're subjecting yourself to, and is that serving you, or is it filling the fears of survival, and is it filling other fears? And again, if that question keeps coming up, then you just ask yourself, choose. You choose. You're going to choose, so choose. Do you truly want to love yourself and just explore yourself and explore life? Do you truly want to be happy? Then choose it. Do you want to live? Are you here just to survive, or do you want to live? So that's the big question. Awesome. Thank you. Have a night.